Okay, so I am going to start by putting in a new layer, and I'm going to call it Actions. And I have all of my buttons in place, so all I have to do now is put in actions. So the action we're putting in is going to be a stop action, and it needs to make the animation stop at the end of this scene. So I'm putting it in a keyframe on frame 125, and I'm going to open my Actions panel and my snippets, timeline navigation, stop at this frame. And this is the simple piece of code that puts in. And you can see the little A out here on the top of the empty keyframe showing that there is an action there. I can also see it here in my Actions panel. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and select that layer, right click and copy frames, and I'm going to add this to every single scene. And what I'm doing is I am selecting the layer, the new layer, so that all the frames are selected when I paste the frames. Okay, so they should all now have a stop action at the end. So I'm going to go back to my outdoors scene, and what we want to do now is we want to put some action script on each one of the buttons in order to get it to, when you click on it, that it goes to the other scenes. So the trick to that is this. I am going to put my playhead back on frame 1, and I'm going to have to click on just my outdoors button. Now, my outdoors button, we named it outdoors, but in order to put action script on it, we actually have to give it an instance name, which is right up here. So I actually am, and it cannot be the same name as the button. It also cannot be the same name as any other instance. So I'm just going to abbreviate this a little bit. I'm going to call it Out1, and then I'm going to go to School, and I'm going to call this School1, and Home1, and Hobby1. Okay, so they each have a name now, and the reason I did 1 is because outdoors is basically the first scene in this animation. Okay, so I have to click on the outdoors button, and right here it says buttons. Okay, I am going to, under that same timeline navigation, I'm going to choose click to go to scene and play. I'm going to double click, and it puts in this code. And what it's saying here is that when you click on the instance of Out1, which is this button, it is going to listen for the event of clicking on clicking with your mouse, and when it does, it's going to go to a scene. Now, mine says 33. Please don't be upset if yours doesn't, because yours is not. The deal is that every time you work on this, it adds a number to it. And I've been working on this all morning, and so it's adding extra numbers. So yours is not going to say 33, it's going to have a different number. And when you do click on it, it's going to perform the function, and it's going to go to and play frame 1 of a scene. And this particular one, we want it to play the outdoors scene. And remember, you have to spell that exactly like it is here. Okay? And then we're going to repeat this with the school. And we're going to change scene 3 to school. And we're going to do it again with home. And with hobby. Okay, now I like to do a test to make sure that things work as we go, so that if there are problems, I can catch it there and fix it before I go so far and have no idea what's going on. So again, all of mine have the movie clip in the rollover, in the overstate. If I click on outdoors, it's going to go back to the beginning of the outdoor scene. But if I click on school, it's going to go to the school. Okay, none of the others are linked now. All we have is the outdoor scene linked. Okay, but it's working. And I can see here in my actions panel that there are actions on frame 1. I can see them all here. Okay, and I also have my stop action on frame 125. So now I'm going to go to my school scene, and I have to do the same thing. I already have my stop action in, but I need my playhead to be at frame 1. I am going to click on the outdoors button, and this needs to have a name now as well. I'm going to call this out 2. Okay, I'm changing the instance name of all of them. This one is going to be school 2, home 2, hobby 2. Okay, so you can see my method of naming them. Then I'm going to go ahead and start with the action script. Click and go to scene. Again, this is going to go to outdoors. This one is going to go to school, home, and hobby. And I will be honest, it used to be that once you had your buttons done on one scene, you could simply copy and paste the frames to every other scene, but that is no longer the case. We have to give everything its own unique instance name. So this is scene 3. I'm giving all of these the name of the button plus the number 3. Because they all have to be unique. Making sure my playhead is at frame 1. It is, and I will start putting in action script just like I did on the previous 2 scenes. And remember that your spelling as well as your capitalization must be precise, otherwise it won't work. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the last one and do the same thing. I'm going to put my playhead at frame 1. I'm going to go to outdoors. This one is going to be out 4. School 3. Home 3. And hobby 3. Okay, and again I'm checking my playhead is at 1, and now I'm going to put in my action script. And each one I'm checking to make sure I'm naming them properly. Okay, now I did not do a check after scenes 2 and 3, and so now I'm going to check. I don't get any error messages. When I look at the outdoor scene, it stops after the 5 seconds. I can click on school, and it too should stop after the 5 seconds. It does. I can click on home. My light is flashing on and off, and it stays on after the 5, and I can go to hobby, and it's going to do the same. Okay, and I should be able to click on any button from any page or from any scene. And if you can, then you know that yours is working correctly, and you should save. I'm going to close this so I can see better. I'm going to save Make sure I have now control test movie, because that SWF is different than a test scene. And I now have a SWF file ready to upload to Canvas.